Morning. Welcome to the Pick-A-Dee Pick Show. I'm Anvil. We're going to get into this, but first, dedicating this show, like all the shows, to my boy Jerry Carroll. Rest in peace, man. I wish he could have been here to do this show with me. We always talked about doing it, and now I'm doing it. Now all we need is for people to start watching it. All right. So we're heading into week 9 here, and, offense has been off the charts. We're set to break records, all kinds of offensive records. And, as a fantasy football player, I really like that. Lots of points, guys scoring, high scoring affairs. It's cool and everything. But as a football fan, I don't know. At heart, I'm a soccer guy. I like my points to be hard fought victories. I like defense. Defensive play is something that has always appealed to me in the game of football. I was a huge Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, J.J. Watt. Most of my favorite players are, defensive players. Running backs came in second. Some of the greats, Riggins, Franco Harris, dudes like that, man. So it's kind of an odd time to be in right now, A lot of points out there. Maybe too much. Maybe too much with this pass interference. I don't know. That's probably a debate for a different day and a different show. So let's jump into it. As usual, I like to start off with my defense. I always say this: frame your ticket. Figure out, your starting point, and figure out where you're going to spend your money in advance, because that's going to help you. So we've got a lot of picks on the defensive board here. And, one of the juicy ones, of course, is the Washington football team. Go Redskins. They're coming in at $4,700, which is not, that's not bad, but it's at the top of the board. Down cheaper, you have the Houston Texans, who are going to be taking on a rookie quarterback. They're going to be on the road. It makes me a little wary of that game. I was also looking at Minnesota. Stafford's out. I'm not even sure who the Detroit quarterback is going to be. But we don't know if Stafford's going to make it or not. So, I'd hate to have to make that last-minute change. But if you're reaching for somebody and you need some value picks, I think Houston at 3,700 and Minnesota at 3,400 are worthwhile picks. But something tells me that this is the week to roll with Washington. They're going to be at home. These teams got to start putting some victories up if they want to do anything. In the postseason, there's talk of expanding the postseason. Not a really big fan of that. I don't think we need to change things because of this freaking COVID. But it is what it is. But Washington is coming off of a bye, and that makes them kind of juicy. And we're going to put them in there as our defense. Now, a lot of times, I talk about framing the ticket, and I go into tight ends. And we're not going to break with tradition on that at all. We're going to look at our tight ends right here. And one that I was looking at is Waller with Las Vegas, mainly because LA has given up 5 touchdowns in 7 games to tight ends. He is a bit on the expensive side, but I don't really see too much value going down scrolling down here. I mean, when you start getting into the guys like Grams, Fells, Ebron, I think you're really guessing. I think Waller has a really good matchup. And my boy Jerry was a Raiders fan. So every now and then you got to think that way. You got to think outside the box. You got to get a little mystical with it. And, you get a handful of candidates and maybe something jumps out at you like, hey, let's play a Raider for Jerry. So let's do that. We're going to put Waller in there. Now, up here at quarterback, we got 2 guys. They're both at the top of the board, and I'm not really a big fan of that. But I like Watson's chances in Jacksonville. Mahomes is facing a good defense. Wilson's facing a decent defense. Murray's facing a decent defense. Murray's at home, but it's against a tough defense. Miami, I don't, they're a good team right now, but they're kind of up and down. But what I really like is out of that top 5, I like the cheap guy. I like Josh Allen. He's mobile. He's going up against Seattle. And Seattle is one of the worst teams against quarterbacks in fantasy. So I'm thinking, you know what? He might be a good spot. And then I'm also thinking ahead. I'm thinking of where can I save some money? And like I said in the last episode, I really like Cole Beasley. He would be a good double up because usually he's somewhat on the cheap side. So that's something to think about. You look at Mahomes. Somebody like Hill's going to be expensive. The rest of his receivers are tough to gauge. Russell Wilson, is it going to be Lockett? Is it going to be Metcalf? We don't know. It changes. I'm leaning towards Lockett this week. I think it sets up the way he plays against Buffalo. Buffalo struggles against players like Lockett. So, there's that. But Metcalf is always in that mix. Murray's got a whole host of guys. He'll probably be targeting Hopkins a lot. Again, Hopkins is kind of expensive. Watson's up there. Again, beyond his top guy, Fuller, it starts to get a little bit blurry. With Josh Allen, we know that he's going to go after Diggs, and we may even use Diggs. But if we can't afford Diggs, then we've got Beasley in our back pocket. So we're thinking ahead. We're thinking, I like this quarterback. I want to do a double up. But maybe I don't want to blow all of my money on the quarterback and a high-end receiver. So where can I get that value? And I think Josh Allen gives us that value pick right now. Brady, Breeze, Hey Bear. You're not going to go wrong with those players, but Newton's down there. But see, the thing about Newton is he's going to save us $600. He could have a big game against the Jets, especially on the ground. But what really turns the tide for me is the fact that Seattle has to travel to Buffalo. West Coast teams traveling, to the East Coast. I would prefer if it was a morning game. That really throws them off. But, they got to travel. Seattle is not very good on defense right now. That was their hallmark. But again, that's, like what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of the defensive powerhouses slipping. Seattle did give up 27 to San Francisco, but I don't think that'll hurt us. I think if Wilson can perform, that's going to force Allen to perform, and that could only help us. So, that's what we're going to go with. Running back here, again, we stick with the philosophy of framing a ticket. And quite frankly, Dalvin Cook, it just jumps right out at me. They're going to use him a lot. If Stafford is in, he's short a few of his weapons. If Stafford isn't in, then Minnesota's really going to be feeding the Cookie Monster there. And I got to put him in. He's going to blow a lot of the budget. I'm not thrilled with his price, but, sometimes that's what you got to do, You got to put him in. So now we got to start scrolling down here. I would love to go with Connors. He's obviously going to have a big game. We could save a little bit of money here with James Robinson. Houston being, 30th against the run. Minshew isn't, whatever. Dude with the mustache is not playing, so they're really going to have to feed the ball on the ground and try to break Houston that way. So I think he's going to get a lot of looks. So he's to me, he's a bit of a definite. We're going to have to scroll down here because, of course, we're going to have to save some money. Here's another one that I was already looking at. You see, right here, before Justin Jackson is probably going to be my pick here, but here's a good example of one of the problems that we face nowadays is you have Zach Moss and you have Singletary. They're both valued the same. They both get used about the same. Depending on how the game goes, that could change the dynamics of which player gets to see the ball more. So I like to stay away from that because it's very hard to judge the flow of a game until the game gets started. Because remember, we can look at this and we could say, oh, okay, this is going to be a high-scoring game, and Buffalo's going to have to throw the ball more, so we're going to give the edge to the guy who's usually out there catching passes. But then all it takes is a fumble, a kickoff return for a touchdown, a pick six. These intangibles can pop up and change the flow of the game. Makes it kind of hard. I like Justin Jackson. I'm playing him in my season-long fantasy league. Vegas is not really great against the run. They've given up the most touchdowns to running backs. And I think that gives him enough of an edge to go in as our flex player. So he's in there. So now we move into the wonderfully wild world of wide receivers. We're sitting at about a $6,000 average right now. We got $18,000 left. Not really being. I don't think we're going to be able to touch some of the top guys. So let's get into it. I have a few ideas that I've already been thinking of. You see there's Lockett. I mean, he's reasonably priced, but you just don't know how the flow of the game's going to go. That's one of the big problems. One of the guys that I really like, because I think Dallas is just basically imploding right now, and I want to capitalize on that. And I really think Schuster's going to be one of those guys. He's right around our balance. So, let's go with him. Scrolling down a little bit more here. You start getting into some of these, guys who, they may, a Christian Kirk, he may get some looks. I don't know. Maybe they're going to blanket Hopkins and maybe Kirk gets open. I mean, these are the kind of questions that become very difficult to accurately pick. There's a lot of experts out there, and if you follow the different experts, you'll see that they are somewhat hit or miss. The best we can do is kind of take the evidence that we have and look at it and say, well, this is what we think is going to happen. And one of the things that I think that's going to happen is I think Judy is going to go off against Atlanta. Not really exactly sure why I think that. It's not something that I can necessarily justify. He does have some buzz surrounding him from the so-called experts. And at 5,700, he is value. So let's put him in and see where we stand, see what we can do. Because I do want to get a double up with Allen going. When we're not going to be able to reach the level of Diggs, because Diggs is way up here at 7,600. Now, do we make some cuts somewhere? That's one of the things that we all struggle with, right? We all struggle with who are we going to cut to try to reach. And I don't know if that's really the way to look at it. I think you're better off seeing first what you can do with your budget before you start slashing your budget. So I want to scroll down here. I haven't seen my boy, Keneal Henry. Really thought he was going to shape up into something better. Look at that. I mean, again, there's Beasley. He is a consistent player. He is averaging 10 points a game. That is a very reasonable expectation for him. Against Seattle. Seattle's going to have to put their manpower into Diggs. I think that, again, opens up Beasley. I don't know why I'm on the Cole Beasley train so much. I've followed his career out of Dallas, and I just, I think the guy's got something, and I think his numbers have been proving that. It's going to leave us with a little extra in our budget, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do anything with it, but let's put Beasley in. So that's going to leave us 700. So now, Justin Jackson was one of my concerns. What happens if we add on this 700? Let's see, with Judy, that would get us up to 6,400. So let's look at this. See, I mean, we have Chark. Okay. Antonio Brown. We can't reach Antonio Brown. Not really sure how he's going to do. I do like Robbie Anderson, but we can't really afford him with that extra. If we go with Jackson over at the flex position, let's see what that would be. That would bump us up to 6,300. Would that get us a slightly better running back? Because I'm not really sure that's what it's going to do. 6,300. We're looking at a Gibson in Washington. Claypool again. Claypool may or may not. It gets to be very difficult picking these guys. We do have Damian Harris down here. He's only $6,000. And to be honest with you, I actually think Harris is a really good play. I've got him going in a season long. He was limited. I don't really, I know the way the Patriots like to list their injuries. So I'm not really too worried about that. Sony's come back, and I don't really think that's really going to cut into his time. I don't see. He could come back and play, but one of the things that me and Jerry did with our season longs, we always had a Patriot and a Raider. Those were our teams, and so we did that. So, as much as hemming and hawing as I'm doing over this, I really like Jackson down by playing the Raiders. I like their record, the Raiders' record of giving up the most touchdowns to running backs. I think Justin Jackson really factors in with the running game. Let's see if we've got any information over here. Yeah, full control of that right now. 10th among all running backs in week 8. They've only got him projected for 7.3 against the Raiders, which I'm not really too frightened about. They do have quite the committee back there, but again, you can't always look at projections because you don't know where they're getting the projections. You don't know how long the projections were made in the past. That's something that I've learned with one of my season-long ones. The projections were, for the most part, made before the season, and I've seen injuries and things like that didn't change the projection, and it didn't make much sense to me. You have to go with your own information. You have to rely on that. Don't rely on others. It's unsatisfying at best, I guess. So I guess what we're coming down to right now is that I'm happy with this lineup. I'm going to submit this lineup. There we go. We're in. We're going to keep monitoring some situations, see if anything changes because, occasionally, things do change. So, we want to make sure that we're looking at that. Capture that image right there. So that's what we're looking at right there. Got a very interesting lineup this week. I hope some of my picks help you out. I know I'm not always right. Who is? And enjoy the weekend. And, see you next week. Laters.